her, you raped her, and then you threw her away into the lake like nothing.
I'm so sorry.
He's one of the boys who killed my mother.
At one point, then she went to get her gun and she shot once at him, killing him.
You are a failure as a father. You are a failure as a man.
A heartbroken mother fainted after encountering her daughter's killer in court. The victim's angry sisters also confronted him during the proceedings.
You are a monster. I hate you. I hate you. You're a piece of.
The method by which Rodolfo Arellano killed his estranged wife, Elizabeth, is particularly gruesome.
Looks like they might have been tied to something. They might have been tied to something. Yeah, they hit the water and they're gone.
We know that the cause of death is drowning, so she was certainly alive.
The 28-year-old medical assistant was still in her maroon scrubs when her body was discovered. She and her husband had 4 children together. Elizabeth's sister, Alejandra, held a photo as she stood up to deliver a statement about the impact of the crime on their family.
You kidnapped her, you raped her, and then you threw her away into the lake like nothing. She was everything to me.
Next, it was the turn of the victim's other sister, Johanna.
She will never get to see her kids grow up. She will continue to miss out on all the holidays. She will miss out on all the high school graduation.
Jeremy Goodale admitted to killing his Spanish teacher for a terrible reason, a bad grade. Facing a prison sentence for first-degree murder made the teenage killer so anxious that he started to get a nosebleed. The teen, who, along with his best friend, tricked his high school Spanish teacher and then took her life, began bleeding from his nose in court just as he was about to hear his punishment. Jeremy confessed to his involvement in a crime that stunned the country, killing his teacher alongside his friend simply because she gave his friend a bad grade.
I'm so sorry.
Goodale read out a statement.
2 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life, and I take full responsibility for what I did. What I've taken can never be replaced. Every day, I wish I could go back and stop myself, prevent this loss and this pain that I've caused everyone.
I was at the Jefferson County Jail speaking with Jeremy. He's one of the boys who killed my mother.
The teacher's son, Christian, shared his thoughts on social media.
He was in tears. He was telling me how sorry he was. And I could see that he really meant it.
Nohima's brother-in-law was asked if he forgives the offender or not.
I don't feel hate in my heart for him. He clearly owes a debt to society that he needs to pay. So the slate is not wiped clean.
The prosecutor mentioned that while Goodale may feel remorseful now, he didn't show any regret immediately after the murder.
The defendant was pretty blatant in his, I would almost call it bragging about his activities on Snapchat.
He had every opportunity to prevent this from happening. And I don't think it could have happened without his participation.
Goodale won't be eligible for parole until he's 43 years old. In July, the other student involved in the murder received a life sentence with a chance for parole after 35 years. The judge stated that his role was even more disturbing since he was the one who struck the teacher. The wife of a Harris County judge stood before a different judge. May Wolf, 48, is accused of murdering her own nephew. She is married to Harris County Justice of the Peace, Bob Wolf. During the hearing, the judge read May her rights, but she claimed she didn't understand because she only spoke Mandarin. The judge then arranged for an interpreter via Zoom. However, court documents reveal that May Wolf actually works part-time as an interpreter in Chinatown. With tears in her eyes, May faced the judge after being accused by police of shooting and killing her nephew.
He was living with them for a period of time.
Police responded to a house on Casino River Circle in Katy. When they got there, they discovered a man who had been shot. The victim was identified as James Edward Wolf, May Wolf's nephew.
Witnesses say that she was not happy that he was living with her and got angry on the night in question.
According to the police, Wolf's nephew had recently graduated from college and stayed with the family after returning from his travels. On the night of the incident, an argument reportedly erupted between Wolf and her nephew. Authorities say she then went into another room and retrieved a gun.
A kind of fight broke out. She was angry and yelling at him. At one point then she went to get her gun and she shot once at him, killing him.
May Wolf is married to Harris County Justice of the Peace Bob Wolf. Investigators stated that he tried to intervene and prevent the shooting. Court documents also suggest that May have a mental illness or intellectual disability. The hearing has been postponed to allow her time to obtain an attorney. Emotions were intense in court as a family confronted the man who kidnapped and murdered a beloved nurse from Detroit.
Would you like somebody to do that to your mama or your sister? Huh?
Jameer Miller has been sentenced to 35 to 60 years in prison for the murder of Patrice Wilson. Before the judge announced his decision, Wilson's family had the opportunity to address the man who took her life. The courtroom was filled with Patrice's family members, extra security, and overwhelming emotions. Some of her family members looked directly at Miller and shared their heartfelt and personal remarks.
You don't do that to me. You never did that to me. It's nobody in this world that is scared of you as a man, bro. You scare women.
Tyrese Berry, the father of Patrice Wilson's son, spoke in court. Patrice was taken from her son and family most horrifically. Her then boyfriend, Jameer Miller, admitted to kidnapping and killing her. Miller accepted a plea deal instead of going to trial. Berry addressed Miller directly during sentencing, his words filled with deep and personal emotion.
You man enough to tell everybody what you did to my baby mama. What did you do to your daughter? You got your people, see? You got your mama here. You embarrassed your family for life.
Miller admitted to stalking Wilson as she finished her shift as a nurse at Detroit Receiving Hospital. He was in disguise, wearing a blonde wig. He then kidnapped Wilson and later left her dead inside her SUV.
Put on a wig. A wig. Why is you hard? You still acting like you hard? You cannot act like you hard, bro. You cry yourself to sleep. You miss Patrice so much. You cry yourself to sleep. You about to take this plea? Take it. Just know that he will never make it out of this. There's gonna be them cars and they're gonna be fading. Family gonna forget about you. Your mama gonna forget about you.
The last words came from Wilson's heartbroken grandmother, Pamela Golden.
How would you like somebody to do that to your mama or your sister? Huh? But I hope somebody will touch you. When you know what I'm talking about.
Miller had a prepared statement, but only read a small part before deciding not to continue. He hinted at a possible motive, mentioning that Patrice wanted to pay off something they owed, specifically a rental car. He said, "I just wanted my money," suggesting that the conflict was over finances. He also described their relationship as toxic. Many family members believe he deserved a life sentence. Miller did plead guilty to all the charges, but going to trial would have meant the family hearing painful details about what happened when Miller forced Patrice into the SUV, something they didn't want to relive. Ultimately, Miller was sentenced to a minimum of 35 years in prison. Lucas County Judge sentenced Daryl Cornelius, the last suspect in the 2022 murder of Damia Ezel. While a family representative expressed that they feel justice was served, they acknowledged that no sentence can bring Damia back. They shared that this may be a wound that never truly heals. Cornelius, 21, was sentenced to life in prison. He was found guilty of aggravated murder, attempted murder, and other charges related to Damia's death. The prosecution presented evidence showing that Cornelius and his accomplice, Byron Cleveland, were targeting Damia's uncle, Kenneth White, in a drive-by shooting on Collingwood Boulevard 2 years ago. The pair fired 11 shots into White's vehicle, tragically killing Damia, who was riding with him. During their closing statements this morning, the prosecution pushed for Cornelius to receive the complete life sentence.
And perhaps in doing so, reinstitute some feeling of justice to her family and her friends and her schoolmates, but also send a message to other individuals in our community similarly situated that this type of violence cannot be tolerated.
Cornelius's defense didn't have much to argue, acknowledging the devastating impact this incident had on everyone involved. However, they made one request to the judge, to allow Cornelius the possibility of parole in the future.
Give my client some hope, some positive motivation, that when he does go down to the institution, that he can do anything and everything that he possibly can to better himself.
Judge Stacy Cook agreed to the defense's request, allowing Cornelius the chance for parole after 25 years. After announcing her sentence, she addressed the room with a heartfelt plea.
It's got to stop. The deaths of children, the fear of children, they can't play in their yards, they can't play in their schools. You can't want this for your kids.
Speaking on behalf of Damia's family, Sean Mahone shared that it's difficult for them to see this as a victory.
They wanted justice and they received justice, and they was very happy to know that he was found guilty. But it just took so much out of him because no one wins. At the end of the day, you have a young man that's going to prison for the rest of his life, and then you have a family that is still mourning the loss of the grandchild.
Although Cornelius received a harsher sentence than his accomplice, Byron Cleveland, the prosecution stated that they didn't believe Cornelius was the one who fired the weapon. Instead, they believe he was the driver. However, they argued that by driving the vehicle, he was an active and willing participant in Damia's death. Jalen Brazier was found guilty of killing his cousin, Zion Foster. The jury returned a guilty verdict on both charges, second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Zion Foster's mother, clutching missing posters of her daughter just days after she disappeared, had been desperately searching for her on Detroit's west side, the last place Zion was seen. After the verdict, she left the courthouse in tears, surrounded by supportive family members. The trial lasted about 2 weeks, filled with highly detailed testimony. 32 prosecution witnesses presented vast evidence for the jury to consider, but they reached a guilty verdict in just over 30 minutes. Prosecutors argued and proved that Brazier killed his cousin, Zion Foster. Her case has been closely followed over the past couple of years, with her family praying for justice and wanting their voices to be heard. In this case, Zion's body was never found. Brazier claimed he didn't kill her, but panicked when she died and disposed of her body in a dumpster, with no body, no blood evidence, and no direct witnesses to Foster's death. Prosecutors linked Brazier to the crime through cell phone records, his statements, inconsistencies in his story, and suspicious web searches. In the end, it led to a guilty verdict.
The fact of the matter is that she was loved, she is loved, she was fought for, and this is the result. So I'm happy that in the end, this is justice.
Zion Foster's mother has tirelessly pursued justice for her daughter, even though Zion's body has never been recovered. Zion's mother has been vocal throughout the case and wishes to speak directly to the jury. A heartbroken mother spoke out during the sentencing of her ex-husband, who took their son's life after a trip to Disneyland. Ana Estevez was emotional as she shared her feelings in a Los Angeles courtroom.
Because
the
of
grieving
this
mother,
selfish, heinous act, I will forever be deprived of the joys that come along with being a mother, such as taking my son to school on the first day of kindergarten.
The grieving mother of the murdered boy confronted her ex-husband in a crowded and tense courtroom. So many people were worried about heightened emotions that 13 court officers were present to keep order. Authorities state that Aramaz Andresian killed his son to get revenge on his estranged wife. The boy was last seen leaving Disneyland with his father. Afterward, the father fled to Las Vegas, where police found he had dyed his hair and shaved his beard. During his first court hearing in Vegas, he showed no remorse, even laughing and joking about being sent back to California. Shortly after, he led investigators to the body near a lake in Santa Barbara County and admitted to killing him. During the sentencing, the boy's mother shared her devastating loss and delivered a strong message to her son's killer.
I pity you. You are a failure as a father, you are a failure as a man, and you are a failure as a human being.
Andresian was arrested after being discovered passed out in a car that had been soaked with gasoline, which authorities believe was part of a failed suicide attempt. He has been sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. A grieving grandmother took the stand on day 2 of the trial against Daniel Garcia, who was accused of brutally beating and killing Dominic Aguilar Acevedo in 2021. The body was later found in a ravine in Colorado. The case took a turn when the grandmother, worried about Dominic's whereabouts, decided to investigate further. On the stand, she explained through a translator that she repeatedly asked her daughter, Nicole, why Dominic wasn't with her. Nicole kept insisting that Dominic had gotten sick in San Antonio and that she had left him with a friend. Concerned and desperate for answers, the grandmother traveled to Costa Rica, where Nicole and her boyfriend Daniel were visiting. There, Nicole finally revealed that Dominic was no longer alive.
Que Dominic había fallecido.
That Dominic had passed away.
Así me enteré.
That's the way I found out.
Ella me dijo,
she told me,
Mami, no pude salvarlo.
Mommy, I was not able to save him.
The defense argues that it was Nicole, not Daniel Garcia, who was responsible for Dominic's death. However, Nicole repeatedly denied these accusations during her cross-examination earlier.
I did mess up as a parent.
No, it's because you inflicted those injuries on Dominic and you're trying to blame Daniel Garcia, aren't you?
No, that's not true.
During her testimony, Nicole told the jury that Daniel would physically abuse Dominic, hitting him in the face and stomach, which caused several injuries. If found guilty, Daniel could face up to life in prison. The testimony is set to continue. This is Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy. Both girls appeared in court for the murder of their friend when they were just teens.
Their scheme was to hide knives on their bodies and to attack Skylar at an agreed upon moment.
In Star City, West Virginia, Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy were friends with Skylar Neese. According to reports, Schoaf and Eddy decided they no longer liked Neese and planned to kill her.
Sheila Eddy and Rachel Schoaf carried out that plan. Together they stabbed and killed Skylar.
After Rachel Schoaf confessed, both teens were arrested. Schoaf agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for her cooperation in the case.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done. I hurt the Neese family and those who love Skylar. I hurt my parents and shamed my family. May God bring eternal peace to Skylar and the entire Neese family.
After reaching a plea deal, the judge handed down Schoaf's sentence.
Rachel Schoaf, it is the sentence of the court that you be imprisoned in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for a period of 30 years.
Rachel Schoaf will be eligible for parole in 10 years. Now, as for Sheila Eddy.
It is the sentence of the court that you be imprisoned in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for the rest of your natural life. That sentence is technically with mercy, which makes you eligible for parole after you have served 15 years.
Sheila Eddy will be eligible for parole in 15 years. Triple murder suspect Bryce Rhodes, who previously spat on his attorney and another inmate, is now facing additional charges for threatening to kill a judge and her family. Deputies took extra precautions by strapping Rhodes in a restraint chair, securing his wrists and ankles, and covering his mouth with a spit mask. He was then wheeled into the courtroom for arraignment. Despite these measures, Rhodes caused more trouble by repeatedly threatening the judge, saying, "What, you don't think we can't find out where you live?" With extra deputies and 3 corrections officers present, Rhodes, clearly agitated by the restraints and mask, continued his outburst, saying, "I don't care. You have family. I'll be out."
Mr. Rhodes, you can just bring him up right here.
Why y'all have me come out like this for?
I think you know why.
What?
You know exactly why. Now, listen, stop talking. Have been.
God.
Are you done?
No, I ain't done.
You've been charged in the 4th degree. I'm going to keep talking because I don't want to have to see you back here for this.
What you think where you live at? What you think at? None of that. I ain't do.
So you're saying you're going to find out where I'm out?
None of that. You got family, I'll be out.
Okay.
Yeah,
You've been charged with assault in the 4th degree, minor injury, terroristic threatening in the 3rd degree, with physical contact. New charges. I'm entering a plea of not guilty on your behalf. Would you like me to read the arrest warrant to you?
No, I'm not guilty.
I am setting a bond of $15,000 full cash on that on those charges, and the other case, once this actually gets served on you, is going to be dismissed without prejudice as duplicate. Do you have any questions? Would you like appointment of a public defender?
Not guilty.
I just said that.
Not guilty.
I just said that.
I'll be out.
Okay, I just said that. And would you like an attorney?
Take me back to my cell.
I'm not taking you anywhere. They can take you back, but would you like an attorney?
All right.
Okay. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office. Ms. Shoring, that was a threat against the court. I think that I'm asking the county attorney's office to take that into account and consider what to do with that.
You want the tape pulled?
Yeah, we'll need the tape pulled. Also, can you please get that served on him? Thank you. Good luck with that, Eric. Fun.
I only just added charges.
Yeah.
Bryce Rhodes was sentenced to 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders of Christopher Jones and teenage brothers Larry Ordway and Maurice Gordon. The judge followed the jury's recommendation, describing the case as one of the most tragic she had ever seen. This case involves a man's tragic actions that led to the loss of life and subsequent attempts to hide evidence, which caught significant media attention.
He walked up to the car she was sitting in with Ruben Arguello. He shot her twice in the face with a .25. After he shot her and she was dead.
In April 2021, Marisol Klingelhofer tragically lost her life in Texas due to the actions of Andres Tarnava. After the incident, Tarnava attempted to hide the evidence by burning her remains on his property. His confession came during questioning by Texas Ranger Jesse Perez at the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. Tarnava told the investigators that he believed Klingelhofer had taken his father's military ID and social security card and felt he needed to confront her about it. Tarnava showed no remorse during his interrogation, stating that he had no regrets and would act the same way if given the chance. The trial opened with the prosecutor presenting the details of the case, highlighting the key facts surrounding the incident.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This case, in a nutshell, is about 3 things. He shot her in cold blood. He burned her remains in an attempt to distance himself from his crime, and he's guilty. In sum, those are the 3 things that the state of Texas is going to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt through all of the evidence and all of the facts throughout the course of this trial. All of the elements that we discussed during jury selection and that my co-counsel, Mr. Van Sieven, just read out to you, we will prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. And all that evidence is going to show that this man, Andres Tarnava, killed Marisol Klingelhofer, the victim in this case, with a small .25 caliber pistol, shooting her multiple times. He then dragged her to his red GMC SUV, transported her to another property on the southwest side of Bexar County, right near the border, still in Bexar County, over by Atascosa. And there, he burned her remains in a steel barrel. The only things that would ultimately be able to be found of Marisol Klingelhofer, 2 bones. She was so badly burned. And that's what the state is going to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt. Our first witness is going to be the next of kin, the victim's daughter. And she's going to get up on the stand and she's going to tell you how this whole story was set in motion. She reported her mother missing. Right? The last time she had seen her was about April 25th of 2021. So she made a missing persons report about 12 days later on May 7th because it's unusual for her not to see her mother. Her mother comes by, visits the grandchildren. It was unusual for her to be gone. So she made that report, and that was the first time that law enforcement would become involved in the disappearance and ultimately the murder of Marisol Klingelhofer. You will hear from some of these law enforcement officers how about a month later, reports started coming in from confidential informants, from snitches, from witnesses, that Marisol Klingelhofer would never be found again, that missing person was dead. And they started providing information as to who did it. And that is when the name of Andres Tarnava first came into the purview of law enforcement. You are going to hear how this information was forwarded to the Texas Rangers. And they investigated this case. And you're going to hear from those Rangers. Ranger Jesse Perez of the Texas Rangers and Ranger Brett Peters of the Texas Rangers. And they're going to take that stand and they're going to tell you exactly how they investigated this case, who they talked to, the evidence that they were able to gather, and how it led to the arrest of Andres Tarnava. You are going to hear from the deputies that executed that traffic stop, a little more on that later, that led to his arrest. Based on all the information that they had, the Rangers were able to procure a search warrant for the Fowler address where the remains of Marisol Klingelhofer were expected to be found based on all the information that they had, where the burning had taken place. And so a multi-agency task force was put together between the Department of Public Safety, the Texas Rangers, and the Bexar County Sheriff's Office to go to that property, set up a perimeter, and search for any evidence that could be found of this murder. While this was going on, law enforcement was tipped off that the defendant was coming back from Austin, hauling some tires in a trailer. So the Rangers, when they received this information, they told law enforcement officers of the Bexar County Sheriff's, find a reason to pull him over and execute a traffic stop. And sure enough, that's what happened, right? What we call a pretextual stop. Because the real reason we all know at that point was he was being looked at for that murder, right? But sure enough, Bexar County Sheriff's officers didn't have to wait very long. They tailed that vehicle, and they found that the trailer he was hauling did not have a displayed license plate in the rear, which is Texas transportation code, right? You're supposed to have a rear license plate. And so the traffic stop begins. When they approach the trailer, they also see that the VIN numbers have been tampered with. There is no VIN number on that trailer. And you have to have a VIN number, right? A vehicle identification number, or VIN. Right? And that's how you prove the ownership of something. That's how you tie it into the system and all that. That was missing. So ultimately, Andres Tarnava is arrested for suspicion of a stolen trailer and for tampering with the VIN number, right? And he gets transported to the Bexar County Jail, where he is housed for several hours until the Rangers conclude their investigation of the two properties involved in this case, as well as they apply for a search warrant for the red GMC that was allegedly involved in this case, and they search that. At the conclusion of all their search, right, because the Rangers wanted to have a complete picture of the case before they went in there and talked to the suspect, right? They want to know everything that there can be to know so that they can confront them with facts. And all this while, the defendant is sitting in an interview room at the Bexar County Jail. As you may or may not know, and the evidence will show you, interrogation rooms have cameras in them, right? And everything that goes on inside them is recorded. And in this case, you're going to be able to see that recording. You're going to see how Andres Tarnava was placed in that room, how he almost immediately falls asleep. You can hear him snoring on the video. And then about 5 hours later, the Rangers come in and they begin their interview of Andres Tarnava based on everything that they know at that point. He is immediately Mirandized. He's read his rights. He says he understands them. He waives them. He voluntarily talks to them and gives the story. During the course of this trial, you are also, we expect, going to hear from some eyewitnesses that were present on the Lucky Road address, southwest Bexar County, where the murder actually took place. We expect that some of those witnesses, we're going to be able to bring them before you, and you're going to hear exactly what they saw and exactly what this man did to Marisol Klingelhofer. How he arrived after he had been looking for her, how he drew his firearm, how he shot her multiple times, the way he dragged her. But, ladies and gentlemen, in this case, you're also going to have the very rare opportunity to hear exactly what happened from that man himself, from Andres Tarnava himself, who confessed to this crime. And if you recall during jury selection, the state of Texas doesn't have to prove to you the why something happens, but we expect that the evidence in this case is going to make it amply obvious why this crime happened. And again, as the saying goes, you're going to hear it directly from the horse's mouth, Andres Tarnava, who during the course of that interview is going to tell you that the reason why he killed Marisol Klingelhofer in cold blood and dragged her body and burned it was because he believed that she had stolen his late father's military ID card and social security number or card some time prior. How he had been looking for her to teach her a lesson. How he found her and did just that. And most shockingly still, perhaps, you're going to hear his utter lack of remorse for what he did.
A crime scene investigator took the stand and provided key testimony, carefully explaining the significance of each piece of evidence gathered from the scene.
43.
State Exhibit 43 appears to be a wooden frame with a screen. We refer to it as a sifter. This device is commonly used in crime scene processing to sift through items of fire debris or dirt, that kind of debris field.
And 44?
State Exhibit 44 appears to be a blue tarp laid down on the floor with unknown objects that were located.
Are these the objects coming out of the sifter?
Correct.
Okay, and 45?
45 is just a zoomed out version of a blue tarp. The items that were being recovered, you can see to the left, the fire debris, the fire pit area. See the sifter there, and to the right appears to be just crime scene material, supplies.
What about 46?
State Exhibit 46 appears to be the 2 burn barrels. You can see the tarp, the same items that were referred in the previous state exhibit. Both barrels have a crime scene marker we refer to, and they have a number identifying each barrel by the crime scene marker. And some other personnel there.
And what are they marked in this photograph, the barrels?
The barrels are identified by crime scene marker 3 and 4.
Okay, we'll come back to that. But what about stage 48?
State Exhibit 48 appears to be 2 paper bags that have some writing on them. Can't really read the writing from here, but sure. State Exhibit 48, 2 paper bags. They have a possible medical examiner's case number. They're labeled blue tarp fire pit, blue tarp barrel. This is common paper bags that we utilize to package evidence.
And Ranger, would you kindly read that medical examiner number into the record?
Each bag is identified by a Sharpie written number, and it states ME Mary Edward number 21-1606. I'll repeat, ME 21-1606.
Thank you, sir. And then let's look at stage 49.
State Exhibit 49 appears to be the blue tarp. There's a crime scene marker identifying crime scene marker number 2, and some objects that were located from the debris field.
What do these objects appear to be to you, Ranger?
They appear to be human remains.
In terms of his opinion, in terms of, excuse me, what type of remains, and if my objection not felt, I like to take him on record. Because if he's testifying that what type of remains,
No, he asked
his
him-
scientific background.
He asked them what they appeared to be to him.
Appeared. So that's speculation in terms of if he said that it looked to be a bone. That's different.
Go ahead, you can take him on board now.
Okay.
Just answer his questions.
Sure.
Now, you just testified that they appear to be, you said, human remains. That's what you said.
Correct.
Okay. Did you do any testing on those items?
I did not.
You're not qualified to make a determination, be certain about what those items are.
I'm not. During the search, though, the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office was on scene.
Okay. So when you say that, it was based on something that they may have said, or you got from them in terms of what it could have been.
Correct. We were provided guidance by their office. Yes, sir.
So I will remove my objection to the answer that was given in terms of what type of remains there are.
I'll overrule the objection because he said they appeared. He wasn't definitive, he said they appeared. So,
based on information that he received in dealing with the medical examiner.
that you elicited because you went into it. So that's overruled. Go ahead, continue, Counsel.
Yes. Stage 50, do we see another one of those sifter devices?
Yes.
What about States 51? What is this?
State Exhibit 51 appears to be a packaging material commonly used for storing live cartridges or fired cartridges.
Why was a picture of this taken?
I believe that it was located there at the Fowler Road location, but due to the interview and the manner of what we believe the victim was murdered, cartridges on scene would be relevant evidence to the offense.
Okay. Were you able to determine what sort of caliber these were at any point during the investigation?
Without looking at the picture, I can't tell the caliber. I don't recall the caliber.
Fair enough, but you took it,
Correct. It was collected, yes.
Okay. Same thing on 52.
Correct. Same item. It's just identified by a crime scene marker, number 5.
I asked you earlier, Ranger Pettis, if the defendant's vehicle was photographed outside of the jail when he was taken there, right?
Correct.
Okay. What is 54?
State Exhibit 54 appears to be the suspect vehicle that he was stopped in. I believe it's a GMC Yukon, maroon color.
Okay, so we can kind of skip ahead to 57.
57 appears to be the same vehicle, just the rear portion of the vehicle.
Okay, and then 60.
State Exhibit 60 is the same vehicle, just the interior rear passenger compartment of the vehicle.
61.
61 is the same vehicle, the front passenger compartment of the vehicle.
And then we'll jump ahead to 63.
63 is the rear portion of the vehicle, the rear cargo area of the vehicle.
Okay. Was that done sort of like as a preliminary, before we search this, we're going to kind of document everything as it lay?
Correct.
Okay.
During the trial, the defense attorney rigorously questioned the witness, trying to identify any inconsistencies or weaknesses in the testimony that might help their case.
Could you briefly, I'm sorry to hear about go back, but with reference to the evidence law, what is that exactly? What is, could you kind of explain to the jury what is the function of the evidence law?
Yeah, basically, an evidence log is just a document that it documents what evidence is discovered and what evidence is collected, date, times, who recovered it, and so on.
Would it also give you an indication in terms of which officers were at a particular scene?
It could, yes.
And when you have, say, crime scenes, a crime scene normally take off, say, evidence tape to tape off the crime scene. Is that normal procedure?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And say, for instance, in a case where you're, say, seeing that subject's like a search warrant or something like that, would you want to put evidence tape around a particular scene?
Yes, sir. You want to secure that scene. That's correct.
Okay. Now, was that done in this case?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Do you recall which officer, say in the Fowler location?
I'm sorry, Mr. Cox, could you
The Fowler location, do you recall which officer would have been responsible for placing crime scene tape?
No, sir, I don't recall.
If once that tape is, crime scene tape is established, if a person goes into that scene, would that person have to be listed on the crime scene log?
That person should be listed on the crime scene log, yes, sir.
And which would also should indicate when that person entered the crime scene and also when that person exited the crime scene, correct?
That's what should happen, yes, sir.
With reference to crime scene log in this case, that you said it's not a part of your, state exhibit number 11.
No, sir.
Did you review that information in preparation for your testimony?
Yeah, you're asking about the crime scene log?
Did you look at it? Did you review it?
No, sir. No, sir.
So there were some items referenced this case, your testimony that you didn't review before in preparation for your testimony.
That's correct.
The crime scene log in this case, do you know whether it was 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you, no, sir.
If you, with reference to states exhibit number 11, if you look through it, could that refresh your recollection to how many pages compose the crime scene log in this case?
I don't believe it would. No, sir.
You didn't put it down. You didn't write it down in there anyway?
No, sir.
Now, this particular case was actually assigned to you, correct? In terms of the investigation, eventually this case was assigned to you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you testified earlier, you're a Texas Ranger, correct?
Correct.
And when a case is assigned to you, you become like the primary or the lead law enforcement officer with reference to as pertaining to this case, correct?
Correct.
So it's fair to say that in terms of information as situations develop, even if you get information with reference to work from other officers or other rangers, it's fair to say that that information eventually flows to you, right?
It should, yes, sir.
It should. And it's fair to say, that one of your jobs would be to compile all the evidence in a case, correct?
Correct.
And that becomes, I would say, a master file for you. And all the information that has been collected in this case, you should have the ability to access that information. You are basically responsible, correct?
That's correct.
At one point, the prosecutor strongly described the defendant as a threat to society, emphasizing the danger he posed without minimizing the seriousness of the crime.
I think the evidence in this case shows pretty clearly what happened. This defendant, mad that Marisol Klingelhofer had stolen something that belonged to his departed father, social security number, ID, something like that, got mad. He couldn't get her over to his place, so he went and found her where he knew she was hanging out with friends. He walked up to the car she was sitting in with Ruben Arguello. He shot her twice in the face with a .25. After he shot her and she was dead, he dragged her from that car by the ankle over to his maroon GMC Yukon. He threw her in the back. He drove her home. He dumped her body on a burn pit. And he burnt her. He used motor oil as the accelerant. And he burnt her until all that was left were bones that were indistinguishable from the animal bones around them, and two charred human bone fragments that Dr. Cervello was able to identify. That's what happened in this case, and that's why we're here. There's been a lot of talk about the investigation, about the other things going on around this case, but that's why we're here. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the law in this case and some of the more tricky elements of this jury charge. After I'm done, Mr. Cox and Ms. Garza will speak to you,
And then finally, Mr. Jordan will give you the last word in this case. But I'd like to talk about this charge. And one thing really quickly, in regards to that confession, there are a number of discs here that contain pieces of that confession. You saw, because of the error that the state made, it was our fault, that the Miranda warning had been excised unintentionally from that original confession. We now have a complete version. The only things removed from it are things that are muted for evidentiary purposes, but States 103 is going to be the one to ask for. If y'all want to watch the confession, if you want to see anything from the defendant's statement, ask for States 103. That'll be the complete thing. Now, I'd like first to talk to you about the on or about language. And the way the law is in the state of Texas, on or about can mean any time anterior to the presentment of the indictment, which means before the indictment is signed by the grand jury, back to the beginning of the statute of limitations. There is no statute of limitations for murder. So, as long as the state proved that this offense took place before September 7th, 2022, the on or about language is legally satisfied. We've done more than that. We've proved to you that this happened in late April of 2021, on or about April 26th. There's a little bit of disagreement. Some of the civilian witnesses who saw it happen aren't entirely sure, 27th, 28th, those exact days, and law enforcement wasn't involved until a month later. So there's a little bit of wiggle room, but we proved that it happened on or about April 26th of 2021. The other thing I'd like to talk to you about is these two sections about the voluntariness of the confession and the legality of the stop. So you received instructions that an officer must have a reasonable suspicion in order to pull somebody over for a traffic stop. And that's right here in your jury charge. There's been a lot going back and forth about pretext stops, about maybe a briefing that did take place earlier that day, whether officers were looking for a reason to pull the defendant over, and I'll tell you they were. All of the testimony from the stand says they were. But this instruction tells you that the question is an objective one. If an officer has a valid reason to make a traffic stop, then the stop is valid, no matter what the underlying reasons are. And in this case, they stopped the defendant for failing to display a rear license plate. It was a valid traffic stop, and it was a valid arrest.
As the trial ended, the judge prepared to announce the jury's verdict, marking the pivotal moment of judgment in the case.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my understanding the jury has reached a unanimous verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
Could the foreperson please hand the verdict form to the bailiff? Mr. Tarnava, you wouldn't mind, sir. Could you rise with your lawyers? This is cause number 2022 CR 8637, the state of Texas versus Andres Perez Tarnava III. Verdict form reads, we the jury find the defendant Andres Perez Tarnava III guilty of the offense of murder as charged in the indictment, signed by the presiding juror. Does either side wish to have the jury polled?
No.
All right, have a seat, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what that means is that your service is done. So all the things that I told you about earlier about not talking and not, you can do all that if you want to, or not.
Andres Tarnava is being held without bond as he awaits his sentencing. He could face a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Mariam Koulibaly, a 31-year-old dancer, was arrested for causing a crash that killed 3 teenage soccer players, Richard Dumais, Lenz Desir, and Gideon Desir, while they waited at a bus stop. Koulibaly had been drinking after a night of partying on Miami Beach and visiting a strip club. Video footage showed her stumbling before getting into her car. She was hospitalized due to injuries from the crash and was later booked into jail. Friends and family of the victims gathered at the football field where the boys practiced to express their grief. Lenz Desir's father expressed a sense of relief after learning that the person responsible for his son's death had been apprehended. The prosecution presented their account of the incident, detailing the events that led to the crash and the loss of 3 young lives. They emphasized Mariam Koulibaly's actions that night, highlighting her drinking and driving, which resulted in the tragic deaths of the soccer players.
Okay. Good morning, ma'am. All right, so you're being charged with driving under the influence, manslaughter, vehicular homicide in a reckless manner, driving under the influence, manslaughter, and another count of vehicular homicide. All right, so tell me what's happening here, State.
Judge, to give Your Honor some background,
Yeah.
on May 25th, about 5:22 in the morning, after the defendant had spent the night partying on Miami Beach and then stripping at a strip club on 113th and Biscayne, this defendant was visibly drunk. We have video surveillance footage of her at the club leaving, stumbling drunk. She gets into her car. She then travels westbound on 125th Street when she gets right about to 14th Avenue where the railroad tracks are. She is flying so fast and so out of control, she hits and kills 3 kids, 13, 15, and 17. Judge, these kids were on their way to get to the Metro bus stop so they could take a bus to get them up to Edison High School so they could then take the team bus to go up to Weston to play in a soccer tournament. She wiped out those 3 lives. Aside from that, Judge, when she was in the car after the car crashed, the officers could smell alcohol reeking from her and the car. She was brought to the hospital. Obviously, she was injured. When she was there, the officers made arrangements to have some blood that was drawn from her secured. The officers obtained a search warrant to get those blood vials based on the probable cause that the judge reviewing the warrant found. That blood was then brought to the University of Miami Forensic Tox Lab, where she was found to have had a .15, almost twice the legal limit of alcohol. Moreover, Judge, when the officers searched her possessions that were in the car, again pursuant to a search warrant, they found in her purse a half-empty bottle of tequila as well as a baggie of marijuana. This defendant has priors for marijuana. I'm not saying she's got a lot of felony priors, but Judge, her driving record is one of the more atrocious I've ever seen in 25 years of handling traffic prosecutions. She has, just in Dade County, 24 separate incidents where she has been pulled over by the police. Moreover, Judge, a lot of them are moving infractions that demonstrate a complete disregard for the safety of other people. She has things like careless driving, running a red light, numerous red light camera violations. Also, Judge, just in 2015 alone, when we get to the issue of her being a flight risk, she had 2 separate cases for leaving the scene of a crash. Also, by December of 2015, I have a crash report where she fled the scene of yet another crash. So this defendant has a demonstrated history of a complete disregard for the safety of other people. Her license has been suspended over and over, not only for not paying her traffic tickets, which I'm less concerned about, but for not even showing up into court. The officers and I had the horrible task of visiting these kids' families. They all came here from Haiti to give their children a better life. Their kids were trying to pursue that, and she wiped it all out. And for that reason, Judge, what I'm asking is on each count of DUI manslaughter and each count of vehicular homicide, that she has a $100,000 bond. If she's able to meet that monetary bond, I am asking for house arrest with GPS, total lockdown. I am asking for a no driving order. I am also asking, Judge, that Your Honor order that she cannot consume any alcohol, and to ensure that she doesn't, she will be with a scram bracelet, so she can have a scram bracelet on one leg and a GPS device on the other leg if she's ever able to meet this monetary bond. I understand that she's banged up right now. That is of her own doing. She is at flight risk. Since the time that we got those tox results back, Judge, the North Miami Police Department has had to watch outside her hospital room because we were all so in fear that she would check herself out of Aventura Hospital against medical advice. So we need to ask Your Honor to understand that a standard bond for these types of charges under this set of circumstances is in no way, shape, or form appropriate.
Okay.
The defense presented their case, disputing the prosecution's claims against Miriam Coulibaly.
The idea that she would, I know that she says that the police department feared that she might check herself out. I don't know, I didn't hear that she did try to do that, so I don't necessarily know whether
I have some evidence that I can present if Your Honor would like to hear
that she attempted to try to check herself out?
Never.
Or the fact that, or something else, but I didn't hear you present
I
that.
have an officer coming. Come to this one, officer. All right, and then can you swear him in real quick for me?
The prosecution called a police officer to the witness stand to provide testimony. The officer shared details about the investigation and the evidence collected.
Okay. Now, that
You
to
said
me
she
is
was
not.
trying to remove the attachment, the IVs,
and everything.
and she said she wanted to get out of there?
Yes.
Okay.
The defense continued its efforts, attempting to downplay the severity of the crime and reduce its impact.
So so basically they were denying her access to her phone. So and that's an interesting situation. I don't know who was denying access to her phone. Was the police denying her access to the phone or someone else? But I don't know if she was trying to hire an attorney or doing some other thing that would probably be in her best interest, and somehow she was being denied access to that. But currently, right now, from what I'm understanding, she wanted to make a phone call and couldn't make one. Not exactly evidence that she wants to absolutely get out of the hospital for all intents and purposes. Now, as far as the rest of from what I understand, I don't exactly know the situation of the traffic accident, so I don't necessarily know whether or not she even had an opportunity to fly. I know she seems to be very injured, so I'm assuming that there was no opportunity. So understanding what the state is saying, $100,000 still is tantamount to no bond, especially on all these counts, which would basically make it $600,000 is what she would have to pay it from the state's position, plus then go on house arrest, plus also get the scram bracelet, which, understanding the situation, is we have no objection to, Your Honor, possibly putting the scram bracelet on her. But as far as having the bond set at $600,000, that is tantamount to no bond.
The prosecution then presented Miriam Koulibaly's driving history and previous crash records to the judge, further strengthening their case.
So it's a pretty bad driving history. Okay. All right, Mr. Ugarte. Anything else you wanted to add? No?
Not at this time, Judge.
Okay. All right.
The judge then announced Miriam Koulibaly's sentence, concluding the trial.
So, I'm going to find that there is probable cause. This is definitely one of those situations where I think an increased bond is warranted. However, because I am going to do the scram bracelet and the house arrest, I don't think I'm going to set it at $100,000. On each of the 6 counts, I'll set it at $50,000 in addition to the house arrest, total lockdown, the scram bracelet, no drive order, most certainly. And you were asking for testing or for no alcohol consumption whatsoever. No alcohol, no drugs, illegal drugs. Random testing, you were asking for random drug testing?
Yes.
Yeah, random drug testing as well.
Judge, the house arrest, that's obviously with a GPS device?
Yeah, of course, and total lockdown on the GPS. Okay.
Considering that it would be a $300,000 bond.
Yeah.
Would Your Honor consider waiving the cost for the house arrest?
I'll waive
You can make that kind of
I'll
bond.
waive the installation fee. Waive the installation fee. It's at $2 a day on the daily cost of supervision. And then what else were you asking for?
That's pretty much
I
it,
think so.
Judge.
Okay, so counts 1 through 6, $50,000 plus all the conditions that I just announced. Are you also asking for any sort of passport surrender or anything like that?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do a passport surrender too. When?
Prior to bonding out, Your Honor?
Yeah, hang on, I'm trying to determine that. How, within 48 hours, it can be within 48 hours after she gets out, that way it doesn't go on the jail card.
No, it would need to be on the jail card. She's an absolute flight risk, Judge.
All right,
She
so
has every
prior
reason
to
flee.
release. So prior to release, so it does go on the jail card. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Have a nice day.
Thank you, you too.
Miriam Koulibaly was sentenced to 15 years in prison, followed by 15 years of probation, after pleading guilty to her involvement in a 2019 DUI crash in North Miami. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.